the air around me is just filled with bushfire smoke, and I'm feeling a little bit clogged up.
Oh no. Is it like a health issue or a safety issue where you're at, or just regular smoke for the time of year?
Well, I probably not for the time of year, because we're, pretty thick into autumn now.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't the weather app give a health quality index now? Maybe I should check that and see if there's anything to be concerned about.
Oh yeah, it does.
Here we go. It is, oh no, I can't find one. There definitely is one though, because I remember seeing one when I was in another country once. And it was it was worryingly low, this health quality, but it was in like a massive industrial part of a country.
Ah. Yeah, I have air quality on mine. Maybe it's just not where you're at. They offer that.
Yeah, seems like that's the case. Ignorance is bliss though, as I say.
Is it common to have bushfires out there? It seems like at least once a year I'm hearing about some kind of fire out near you.
Yeah, there are always fires. And
Just always raging, huh?
well, they do burn-offs to supposedly prevent bigger out-of-control fires. But, of course, they try not for the burn-off to affect not the city. They try to predict when the wind is going to blow the right way, but you can never predict the weather perfectly, so they might do a burn-off and then suddenly the wind changes and now the city's covered in smoke, that sort of thing.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's pretty common on my side of the world as well. Especially, I'm surrounded mostly by farmland and large plains. So it's an annual tradition that it's burned off, and depending on what direction the wind blows, it can be pretty uncomfortable for a while.
Yeah, exactly. There was some groundbreaking research that came out only a few weeks ago from some scientists in Western Australia specifically, and they found that burn-offs actually cause fire problems more than they prevent them. So that's going to rewrite a few procedure manuals, isn't it? If that turns out to be true or it gets verified.
How does it cause them? Just that it tends to go out of control, or what was the metric for that?
I'd like to find it. Not that the burn-off itself goes out of control, but I think it was... So when you do a burn-off, it clears all the refuse, I suppose, that's on the ground. I'm going to have to find it.
Mm-hmm.
Talk amongst yourselves for a few minutes.
Okay. Well, you're... I'll
right.
transition to my next topic while you're researching, unless you've
I found the
already got
article. I already found it.
Okay.
Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. Here's the quote. The problem is that a lot of the forest can't be treated that frequently. Even when they're under a 6-year age, we found they're still more flammable than an unburnt forest. So a burnt-off forest that was burnt less than 6 years ago is more flammable than a forest that hasn't been burnt through. Because you start getting denser regrowth very shortly after a burn-off. Continuing the quote. So what we found in the worst climatic condition, fire was still 3 times less likely in a really long unburnt forest than in a recently prescribed burnt-off area. Oh, that's interesting. Based on 56 years of fires, that research was. Apparently, forest self-thins after a specific amount of time.
So this is specifically for forested areas then, and not large plains like where I'm at?
I suppose so, yes.
Interesting. Okay, I guess that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's also, where I am, where you have thousands of square miles of nothing but plains, sometimes it's the only way to keep it knocked down at all and not completely overgrown.
What would it be overgrown by?
Prairie grass, mostly.
Okay. Yep.
So I can grow tall. I don't know if there's any issues with that. outside of like farmers not liking it on their land, I guess. If it like invites, invasive species that can then live in that tall grass that otherwise, wouldn't be able to or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know the full reasoning. I just know that that's the normal that I've grown up with.
The word prairie brings back some real nostalgia for me because the only time I've heard it is that TV show, Little House on the Prairie.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, it's not common parlance.
All right, well then you basically can picture my childhood if you've seen that TV show. That's life on Kansas.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm. A little hut with a dirt floor and a couple cows.
That's it. That's life.
Battling the dust bowls that blow through and kill all of our crops. And
I'm looking forward to this visit.
Oh, to come? Yeah, definitely. If you're lucky, you'll get to see a tornado. Very common occurrence in Kansas. So we've got all the best stuff out here.
Don't forget the museum. Lion, no, not Lion Witch in the Wardrobe.
The Wizard of Oz Museum.
The Wizard of Oz, thank you. The Wizard of Oz Museum, which is filled with fake,
right, tangentially related props. Yeah. It's funny you say that because as you're speaking of it, I hear The Wizard of Oz playing in the living room. My daughter's watching it with my parents right now.
Why does she need to watch it? Couldn't she just step outside?
Yeah, exactly, and get swept up in a tornado and dropped off of the yellow brick road. Mm-hmm. I don't think she's actually seen the movie.
Really?
Which is like a crime as a Kansan for have a 6-year-old daughter who's not seen The Wizard of Oz, but
that should be part of the curriculum in school. It's not really your favorite.
Right. Yeah, there you go. Actually, that's probably the most likely place she would have seen it. Maybe she has seen it. She's at least been to the museum, so I've cultured her somewhat. Mm-hmm. So we had a traveling circus come to town the other day. Mm-hmm. And what they did is when they arrived and set up their tents for a few weeks they were here, they sent out free tickets to like every business or school or anyone that would take them within like 100-mile radius of the circus. And my daughter ended up with a handful of them at school and brought them home. And it was dead set that we have to go to the circus. She's got free tickets. We got to go see it.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. Why wouldn't you? So the first catch is that the tickets were free child admittance with the purchase of an adult ticket.
Oh, wow. That's how they get you.
Okay.
Amazing.
Right. Yeah. But still not bad. She was excited about it and she was going to get it for free. So I figured we can go out there and check it out. That free circus ticket that she brought home ended up costing me $140 to go see the circus.
How?
So the first things first, as we pull up to the circus, $20 to park. Before we even get to the gate, you gotta pay $20 to park. Yep.
Was there not another place to park though nearby? Surely, just like out in the street.
No, it was set up out in the middle of nowhere. It was at a dirt racetrack, far away from the city, along a highway. So that was the only place to pull off and park anywhere within miles. So you had to park there. $20 to park.
Wait.
Get up to the gate.
Wait, still on the parking.
Uh-huh.
Was there at least someone who was like guiding you where to go, or at least a couple of staff members involved, maybe even clowns, making the whole experience a little more bearable?
It was not clowns. It was but there was a person there who, took my credit card and charged me as I was going in.
Oh,
and then a second person that was directing cars where to park.
2 people involved with this.
Just out in the middle of a grass field. Yeah.
Did you have to, did they take Apple Pay at least?
No, they almost didn't take my credit card at all. It was almost a cash-only affair because the first guy I spoke to, his reader was broken, but he was able to find someone else who could actually charge my card.
Broken in quotes. There's no way on earth it was actually broken.
Well, I don't carry cash, so we would have just had to turn around at that point if he wouldn't have found a solution.
There's always a solution. It's like the taxi drivers who don't take credit cards, and then when you're like, well, I don't have anything else, and then suddenly they do take credit cards.
Mm-hmm. Trying to avoid that small processing fee.
Well, processing fee, and well, in the case of taxi drivers, they don't want the person who owns the taxi to know about the trip and all that. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah. I never really picture these traveling circuses as the most legitimate affairs. So they could definitely be some tax write-offs or whatever else, the parking person wanting to pocket some of it. But anyway, I managed to get through the gate and park the car. I purchased my ticket online ahead of time, but had I not, either way, the adult ticket that Elizabeth's free ticket came with was $60. So it was $60 for my ticket for her to get in free. So now we're $80 just for the two of us to get in the door at the circus.
What do you think for $60 for an adult ticket? I think it's probably fairly reasonable, unless it was a really small circus.
It's the smallest circus I've been to. I think it was probably worth it still. But when they still existed, I've been to Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey circuses, like the 3-ring circuses, and those are huge, big affairs. And this was like a traveling, set up a tent in the middle of nowhere, 1-ring circus. There was some impressive stuff, and it was probably worth it, but it's definitely not the biggest circus I've seen.
Okay. So we're at $80 to get into the
$80
tent.
to get in the door. And we showed up. First of all, that's also surviving the line to get in. There was a very long line, even though we'd paid online ahead of time to get into the gate. And so that whole time we're standing in line, for which was probably 30 minutes, there were people with shopping carts full of like glow sticks and light up toys going back and forth trying to sell them to the kids. We made it past that without buying anything. I was able to convince Elizabeth we were not getting a toy. So we've made it just into the circus, $80.
Where's the other $60 coming from?
Well, let me finish.
I know, but it has to be food. What else can it be?
Well, we showed up an hour early because the tickets said that there was like children's activities for the hour before the circus started. And we didn't know what those were, but we wanted to go check them out and see what they were. And they had things like bounce houses, face painting, camel rides, a few other activities. And you go up to one to do it, and they're all charge a certain number of tickets to do it. Like riding a camel was 3 tickets. And you go, okay, where do we get tickets? And they pointed us to a booth. And so we go over to the booth. Tickets were $7 a piece.
Oh, so camel ride, $21.
Which is the only thing we ended up doing. She was dead set she wanted to ride the camel.
21. Oh, that's brutal. Yeah. Like when I go to some sort of fair and there are camel rides, I've got it like pegged 50-50 that it's free or $5. Like it could go either way.
Right.
It's not going to be $21.
Right. Yeah. Well, we showed up an hour early. We weren't going to stand around and do nothing. So we just did Just the Camel, nothing else. Had to pay $21 to do that. So we ride the camel, and then the circus is about... How long was the camel? It was a very, very small pin, and they took you in 2 laps around the pin. Like she was on the camel for maybe 2 minutes.
I knew it.
Yeah. So after that, circus is going to be starting soon. She wants to pick out a snack to eat while we're watching the circus. So we go out there, and there's lines. There's hamburgers and cotton candy and snow cones, and she wanted just a regular tub of popcorn. So we go wait in the popcorn line, and there's no prices on any of this stuff, by the way. You don't find out until you're paying for it how much any of it costs.
No, it takes tickets, right, for popcorn? 3 tickets for popcorn.
No tickets this time. No, but the little tub of popcorn she got was $15 for the tub of popcorn.
Oh my God. $15.
Okay.
They've like taken the price list out of a movie theater and then tripled it.
Yeah, exactly. So we get the popcorn. We get into the circus. We find some seats. We sit down. There's a person associated with the circus walking around with like an old, like mid-2000s digital camera, like a point and shoot camera. He's taking pictures of everyone. Like, I don't know what this is. Maybe it's for social media or whatever. They come to us. Elizabeth and I smile, and they snap our picture and walk on, and that's the end of it. And then we watch the circus that starts. And then halfway through the circus, this guy comes back with a printed out photo that he had taken of us, and hands it to Elizabeth, and she gets excited about it. She wants it in her room.
Oh my god! So I
say, okay, we'll get the picture.
It's not their first radio.
How would you think is a cheap picture from an old point-and-shoot camera?
Well, I mean, the price of popcorn, $15. A 2-minute camel ride, $21. When you go to a theme park, they're asking like $20 a photo. So, actually, I could probably work this out from how much you've told me you've spent so far in the total. So what we had 60 to spend. We had the camel ride, took us down to 40. The popcorn. So we're probably looking at about $15 for the photo.
It was $20 for the photo.
Oh, that would have been
So we buy the photo, and then we're probably more than halfway through the show, but Elizabeth decides it's too loud and we've got to leave. So we left the circus. $140.
You were probably glad to get out, because who knows what they would have stung you with after that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of people there, so I'm definitely happy to beat the crowd and get out of there when we did. But yeah, it was. I anticipated there being some steep costs, but I still was not expecting $140 by the time we got out the door there.
I mean, they hadn't even got you with the leaving the tent fee, the getting back to your car fee, opening the gate to drive out onto the highway fee. Man. They are good, though. They are good.
Right.
It's probably the reason they're still in business and plenty of other traveling circuses aren't.
Right. And they did like 3 shows a day for, it was like Friday, Saturday, Sunday for 3 weeks. They're doing 3 shows a day. And there were hundreds of people there at least. So they're making a ton of money. But yeah, that was my circus experience.
Well, I guess sorry to hear it. A circus should be a place of laughter and happiness, not clowns that rip you off.
It was a good time. I think Elizabeth enjoyed herself until it was too loud. So experiences are worth more than anything.
I suppose that's true, yeah. How old is she again? She's 6?
She's 6, yep.
Yeah. So she's at least at an age where she'll probably remember and cherish the memory.
Right, yeah. I mean, I remember going to a smaller circus like that with my parents when I was her age. So
yeah,
hopefully
absolutely.
It's a memory that sticks with her.
Yep.
And then I've got a little bit of follow-up on my housing situation as well. Really, really quickly, my actual house situation is coming to a close here very quickly. I'm closing on it Tuesday morning. So by the next time we talk, I'll probably be calling you from my new house.
Very exciting.
Yeah. So now I've gotten through the stress of buying a house. I've got to go through the stress of actually getting it ready to inhabit and finding the right people to put in all new flooring and getting all the walls repainted.
How will you be in the house if you've got the walls and the floors to do still?
Well, I may not be. We'll see where 2 weeks goes, but I might end up just going and sitting on the floor in an empty house for a little bit of peace and quiet so I don't hear the Wizard of Oz the whole time I'm talking to you.
Your audio is going to sound like mine, like coming from an echo chamber.
Oh, that's true. I'll bring a big dunny with me and drape it around while I'm...
A big recording. What? Sorry?
A dooner. Sorry. Trying to remember your words for things.
Did you say you're going to chuck a dunny around yourself? That's going to be smelly and messy.
Yes. Yes, dooner.
Dooner.
You and your Australianisms. I can't keep them straight. But my real follow-up, the interesting thing that I wanted to share with you, is my move-out process from my apartment. I moved out of my apartment a week early before the end of my lease, which would have been a week before the end of March. And I just heard back from my landlord earlier this week. She went through and inspected the house and sent me an email that said, you did a great job cleaning up the apartment. Expect a few follow-up emails shortly with like a list of deductions from your deposit, what's going to be coming out of that.
No, here we go.
And then I received 11 emails with probably a dozen pictures in each one. And some of them were legitimate. Some of them were a little overboard, like she took a photo of every nail hole in the wall, which I expected to be charged for, but didn't need to photograph every single one. And then there was some very ridiculous things that I'm going to send to you over Discord as we go. Some of the things I was charged for. So here's the first one. She sent me a picture of the light fixture in my bathroom, and charged me for the color temperature of my light bulbs not matching. So she had to replace the light bulb.
Match when you moved in?
I don't remember. She had to replace them so they all matched.
Has she not given you the opportunity to go and resolve these yourself?
No, of course not, because she sent me this email after there's already new tenants moved in.
No, that can't be the process. That's outrageous.
That's the process. So anyway, color temperature mismatch in light bulbs. There's 3 light bulbs in the fixture. 1 is warm, 2 are cool light bulbs. And to make them match, she could have replaced 1 or 2. She just had to replace 2 of them and charge me for 2 light bulbs. So that
Which room did you say? Is this the bathroom?
This is the bathroom, yeah.
You don't put warm lights in a bathroom. You want it to be as close to daylight as possible, because that's what everyone's going to be...
Well,
that's what everyone's going to be seeing you under. So you can apply your makeup and get like the right shade of whatever makeup you wear.
Right. All right. Next thing I'm sending you. I got 2 separate photos of dust on the dryer.
I'm having a hard time. That's dust?
Mm-hmm. There's a few little specks of dust you can kind of pick up. And she sent me 2 photos of different angles of, look, there's some dust on the dryer, and that's a deduction.
But dust, you just, feather duster, wipe it off.
Right, exactly. Well, and along those lines, this is the only other photo I put out I thought was worth sharing. She sent me a photo of a spider web in my unfinished basement.
A spider web in the basement.
Yep.
It's fairly unavoidable.
Right, and it's not livable occupied space. It's literally bare concrete. Next to a window that's not even a window, you can kind of see that it's just plastic slats that aren't even fully closed.
Yeah, those slat windows just don't close. Like you cannot make like a good seal glass on glass with with the metal hinge from the 1920s. Jesus Christ.
Anyway, those are a few of the deductions that I ended up getting for my apartment. But I was already fully... I know a few people who've rented from her in the past and had told me already don't expect to get any money back. And so it wasn't a surprise to me. It was just funny to see the things that she called out.
That's just not how things operate around here. You leave and they do an inspection the next day, and then they give you a list of things to resolve, and then you have a chance to make the resolutions. And then they go back again and they check again. And if it's not satisfactory, you get another chance. And then this can go on until you either get sick of the process and just give them the money, or it gets too ridiculous that they stop asking.
I have never experienced that in my life.
I guess just different countries, different processes.
Yeah. Yeah. The funny thing about these photos is they're all dated the day after I left. So she did go in that next day and document all those. She just waited 2.5 weeks until it was already reoccupied to send it to me and let me know there was an issue.
Huh, nice. And just to add insult to injury, she didn't compile it into a single email. They all had to be individual emails.
Well, I imagine she was reaching the ceiling for size of attachments per email. That's why she had to break it up.
Ah, right.
Because there was, like I said, 6 to a dozen photos in each one.
I mean, she's clearly got an iPhone Pro of some description. She could have used the feature to shrink the photos.
Oh, yeah. Apple's got that great feature where attachments are too big. They'll upload them to their servers and then
all that
kind of re-download it on the receiver's end.
Mm-hmm.
But no. Had to break it out. And so she sent me all these photos, and in the email, she didn't say, and so this is how much I'm deducting from your deposit, or this is how much you owe me, or I owe you. She said, please acknowledge this is the condition you left your apartment in, and then I will process your deposit. And so the way I read that is like, give me some kind of written confirmation that you did this so that I can then bill you afterwards.
And if you just
And so
ignore
I did just ignore it.
Perfect.
And what happened was, a couple days later, I got another email from her that she just went ahead and processed the deposit anyway.
Ooh, that sounds very illegal.
And, well, I don't know anything about the legality of any of this, but she sent me an email saying, this is how much I deducted from your deposit, and I gave you all these discounts, like random percentages off of everything. But it ended up being like, I get $100 back. And then it was like, please sign this this disclosure thing saying you agree to pay the deductions, and then I will mail you a check for the remainder of your deposit. And I was going to ignore it anyway, but I was like, $100 is, I'll just sign it and send it back. I don't care. Like, my deposit was $900. Mm-hmm. So she found a way to justify $800 out of it.
Wow.
But I was expecting nothing, so I'll take $100. So I signed it and emailed it back to her, and then immediately got another email from her that was like, thank you for signing the disclosure. Here's all the other things I'm going to bill you for now.
Are you joking? Are you kidding?
And so that's where it's left right now, because now I'm back to, I'm going to ignore this.
I would be outraged. I've never had less than 100% of a deposit returned to me.
Really?
That's just how it works. If something's not up to scratch, they let you know, and then you go and fix it, and you get money back.
Right. Yeah, if you're given that opportunity, which I've never had that. But anyway, that's pretty standard practice around here, and especially this landlord in particular, from what I've heard. But yeah, frustrating to deal with for sure.
As it happens, I am going to be on the opposite side of the fence, possibly by our next show or the one after, because I have a little unit which I let out about an hour out of the city, and the tenant is leaving in a couple of weeks. Now, it hasn't been the best tenant, and one thing I'll call out is that she didn't sign any sort of pet bond, and yet I know for a fact that there was a very large German Shepherd that turned the backyard from paved, neat, to basically holes, dirt and holes in this backyard.
When you say paved, do you mean there was cement that this dog actually tore up, or what happened back there?
You know those, what do you call them? Concrete tiles? They're probably like, how big would you say? Like a foot and a half by foot and a half, that sort of thing.
Yeah, okay, like I think paver stones? I don't know.
Paver stones, yeah.
I understand what you're saying, though.
But they weren't cemented in, they were just neat. I mean, they didn't, if you looked at them and not too closely, you might say they were cemented in, but they were just placed on flattened dirt, compacted dirt.
Okay.
Last I saw, they were just like in a messy pile somewhere in the corner, and the ground they were on is full of holes from this unimproved dog. German Shepherd, did I say? Like a big dog in a small yard. So that's going to make for a fun inspection in a couple of weeks. And
have you performed any like inspections like during their tenancy to see if like the German Shepherd's also done damage to the interior?
There have been inspections. Yes, I don't attend them personally, but the interior is not looking that great. So there will be some photos sent. Probably not one photo per email, but there'll be some photos sent. Yeah.
All right. Well, this is the first time I've ever heard that you're a landlord, James.
Yes, I'm a landlord. I don't want to
ashamed to admit it.
Spread the information too far, because it rarely draws like a sympathetic word or feeling towards someone to know that they're a landlord.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we've got a loyal listener out there in the Perth area who's looking to rent something, and now they've got a connection. Unless you've already found a tenant for this new unit.
No, haven't found a tenant yet. But if any listeners are interested in a 3x1 in Safety Bay, please let me know.
There you go. So, well, don't, especially in Australia, I don't know how well you can get away with charging for a spider web in the basement, but don't do that, James.
I would never, no. I'm not that sort of person. But I will certainly, I won't let a paved backyard turn into piles of dirt slide, nor what looks like punches through internal doors. Moving on.
Oh, no.
It's not looking good for her deposit, I'll just say.
Okay. So is this a system that could be gamed? Like you said that you could go back and forth requesting renovations and they can do that. Could they just decide to I'm going to come back and fix one thing every day and make it so you can't lease the unit out for months on end because you're going back and forth for so long?
I don't know what the limitations are on the whole process. I've never really had it go in that direction. I've certainly heard about it go in the other direction where the landlord is gaming it, but never the tenant for some reason. I guess the tenant is so keen to get their bond back most of the time that they don't try and extend the situation because they want their bond back so that they can go and get a another rental probably, or I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah, I've certainly heard of the landlord or the management company just pinging on every tiny thing for weeks and weeks and then starting to claim on lost rental and all that nonsense. But I'm sure that there must be a limitation. I mean, otherwise people would be milking it forever. Right.
All right. Well, should we actually get into some Apple stuff this week?
Yeah, I suppose so. I suppose we should.
Get around to it.
I mean, it's just the way we do things now, a modus operandi that we talk for at least 30 to 45 minutes, not on topics.
If not for the whole show.
If not. Good morning.
Good morning.
So the first topic off the bat is that the new MacBook Air 2022 is tipped for launch at WWDC this year. So there have been rumours on and off that it would be due in June, and that lines up well with WWDC. I don't know. I don't think so, for a few reasons. Firstly, we know for a fact that there's a Mac Pro coming, and the Mac Pro is just the perfect computer to come out at WWDC because it's what the pros are going to be buying, and that's what all the pros are tuning in. All the pros are tuning in, I should say.
Right.
And historically, well, the current Mac Pro came out at a WWDC. I can't remember how many previous ones before did, but do you remember?
I don't know how many for sure, but it is standard fare that some pro level Mac is usually, if there's hardware announced, it's pro level at WWDC.
Right, okay. So to announce a MacBook Air just seems like, just doesn't seem like something that Apple would do.
I'm going to make a prediction about this that ties in a little bit to our next topic, but I'll try not to dive into that too much.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it's possible because Apple needs to launch an M2 computer before September. Because a topic coming up is going to be that the Pro model iPhones are going to have the new A16 chip, and the base model i14s are going to stay on the A15. But I'm wondering if they need to put the M2 in a computer first so that come September, they can put the M2 in the Pro iPhone. And that's the higher end chip that the Pro phones are going to get this year instead.
That was actually my the second reason, which I forgot to say, which is why I didn't think the MacBook Air would come at WWDC, is because the Mac Pro will have the M1 something, and they're not going to release an M1 and an M2 at the same time. You know, like leapfrog the M1 the moment it's leapfrog the Mac Pro the moment it's released with, you know, a MacBook Air M2 with a better single core performance. That doesn't make sense either.
Right.
Why do they need an M2 in a computer before the iPhone Pro has it?
Because the Macs are really what's going to be able to show off the capability of the M series chips. We're at the point now where, multiple iPads have the M series chips and the Macs have them. It makes sense that the Pro iPhone could also get them. If they put it in the Pro iPhone, it's like, well, iPhones are already so fast. The M2 or not, you're not going to really know a difference. But if they put it in a MacBook Air first, because it's still a Mac chip, it's the difference between saying we're putting a Mac chip in the iPhone versus we're taking this chip that was originally in the iPhone and putting it in a Mac. I think it's just like a marketing angle. It needs to be in a Mac first.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I could see them doing away with the A series entirely in the near future.
But what about the A15 and the M2 being on the same process? Why would they put, wouldn't the M2 is like last year's iPhone chip?
Yeah, that's what everyone is expecting, and I believe that'll probably be the case. That's true. If you look at the A series as their way to do a test flight of their new processes ahead of them moving to the M series chips, then maybe it does make sense to keep that line around for their very small scale testing of new architectures and cores and things like that.
Wait. Are you saying that the iPhone is the testing small scale? The iPhone is the product. The iPhone gets
it's the most popular
chip.
one.
Yeah, and then the others get the process just because the iPhone got it. So, lucky Mac gets the same technology.
Sure, but it's scaled up, right? So you can test the cores when you're just using the A14 cores in the iPhone, and then you take those existing cores and you add more of them and surrounding controllers into this M series chip. But it's kind of a way for them to break out part of that. And it's here's just the CPU and the GPU cores. We'll put those in this small chip. I'm not saying in terms of scale or number of sales, just this literal size of the chip. The iPhone one is smaller, and they can test a fraction of what the whole M series chip is.
So then if the iPhone Pro gets the A16 this year, would that not be the basis for the M3?
It's hard to predict right now. It could be that the M2 actually skips A15 and is based on these new A16 cores. Or it could be that M1 was based on the iPhone cores because it was an easy jumping off point, but now they're going to be going their own directions. They're going to diverge, and they're not really going to be based on each other moving forward. We just have no idea what an iteration over their first generation chip is going to look like and what their real plans are.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so all we've got really to base on is that we had an M1 and A14, and then we had an A15, which is a small jump. And just, wait and see after that.
It seems like, from the rumors, a M2 is going to be based on A15, which, like you said, is a pretty small performance jump. And so a lot of the improvements in M2 is going to come from things like more cores. I think even the base M2 is supposed to get 2 or 4 more high efficiency cores. So that'll be a big leap just in terms of core count.
I had an experience with my first M1 iPad during the week, or since we last spoke.
Okay.
Man, that thing is really fast, amazingly fast. Remind me, do you have an M1 iPad?
No, I don't. I've got my M1 MacBook Pro, and then I got the iPad Mini, which has the A15 in it.
Right, yeah, okay. Which could be even faster than the M1 iPad, would it?
In terms of single core, it would be.
Yeah, okay.
Just barely, though.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, this wasn't my iPad. It was my dad replaced his 4th gen iPad. So
wow.
The first one that had the lightning connector, he finally decided it was too slow for him. So we went from that with the A4 or A5 in that one?
It had the A6.
A6, okay. So he went from an A6 to an M1.
Wow.
I enjoyed his first experience with it because I did the setup to him and handed it to him. And, first thing he did was just check if he could read the news. He tapped on, he went to the news site and tapped on the first article he wanted to read. And he just sat there oh, what are you doing, Dad? It's oh, I'm just waiting for it to load. Mate, it's already loaded.
It's already there.
It loaded the second you tapped the link. And he didn't. It loaded so quickly he didn't even notice it had loaded. So
He was waiting for the spinning wheel to pop up.
yeah, basically, yep. I think they had those on the old 4th gen iPad.
Well, that's awesome. I'm sure that'll last him another. What, the A4 came out in 2013?
A6, you said?
Sorry, the 4th gen iPad
Mm-hmm.
came out in 2012, 2013, somewhere around there.
So
another
10
decade.
years. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. One little thing though about that iPad, he didn't get the Pro, he just got the iPad 5th gen. A little, I guess you could say,
The iPad Air 5th gen.
iPad Air 5th gen. I don't know, I'll call it an inconvenience. But to unlock the thing, so the fingerprint reader is on the power button, and you have to press that to like wake the screen, or wake the screen and then just hold your finger on it. But then you still have to do the swipe up from the bottom. I never like connected the dots that would be the workflow to unlock the screen to start using the iPad.
That is not the case.
No?
Because I can't imagine it works any differently than my iPad mini with Touch ID and the power button.
Tell me then.
And if you unlock with Touch ID, you'll see in that little indicator on the screen, it says rest to open. And so if you leave your finger resting on that Touch ID button a little longer, it'll just unlock automatically.
Okay. So it does the swipe up for you.
Yes, it does.
Okay.
But you've got to leave your finger on there just for like another second or two after it registers the Touch ID.
Okay. Well, that is good to know. I'll be sure to educate the old man on that.
All right.
Anyway, sorry to hijack the topic.
I do have another thought on the state of Mac laptops in general, because there's also rumors that the old design 13-inch MacBook Pro is going to get another update, like potentially a minor one, just putting the M2 in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a theory on this, and I'm going to try to run it by you and see if you can get to the same conclusion that I can from this information. So Apple is going to have, after this transition, they're going to have the thin and light MacBook Air computers, and they're going to have the super powerful MacBook Pro computers. And they're going to have this computer that is bigger than the MacBook Air and not as powerful as the MacBook Pros. What would you call that?
Just MacBook, I suppose.
MacBook. That's the MacBook. If they drop the Pro from this name, they can even keep the old design. It's bigger than the Airs. It's not as powerful as the Pros. It's the MacBook. And that would be, in my mind, the only way it would make sense for them to keep this around.
I'm sure you've told me this theory before. It sounds very familiar. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I am a very strong advocate for just MacBook coming back in one form or the other over the years.
I can remember
my latest hill to die on.
Okay. I can remember my reasoning too as to why I didn't think it would happen. Is because that people want to buy the MacBook with the Pro in the name, but they don't want to spend MacBook Pro money, real MacBook Pro money. So Apple needs to have a MacBook Pro that's just a small step above the Air in price.
I guess. It's just, I don't even, here, let me finish my thought, because there was a couple extra steps to this that I've left out. MacBook Air is getting a whole redesign with this next generation. I could see that also coming with a slight price bump, a few $100s. So this $999 computer goes to like $1,200. This MacBook Pro that is in their old design, their old process, they've already gotten all their money back from the machinery. If they can drop this down to the $999 MacBook, and then your thin and light, newer design MacBook Air is a few $100s more, and then MacBook Pro is a little more than that. That's how I see it slotting in the lineup. Not as more expensive than the Air, but as the entry computer.
Has Apple ever done anything like that? Like switch two products around? You can't just take a MacBook Pro and call it something else and give it another price and not change anything about it.
I mean, that kind of is. I mean, not changing anything about it is what makes it just the basic MacBook at this point. It doesn't have the new designs. It's got the same chip as the Airs without the cool new Air design. I don't know. I don't think it makes sense to be more expensive than the Air, especially after the Air gets redesigned. That's my biggest point right now. Is a redesigned MacBook Air cannot be cheaper than this, 7-year-old laptop design.
Certainly it's the black shape, isn't it?
Yeah. So I don't know. That's my thought right now. Is as an entry level computer, this makes the most sense. But I don't know if that'll actually happen. Probably not, because it makes too much sense to me.
Okay. It just doesn't need to exist, does it?
If they can keep the MacBook Airs at the $1,000 entry point, it doesn't need to exist. I'm worried the redesign is going to come with a price increase, but we'll see.
Or what have redesigns to date brought? Have they brought price increases? What about the iMac redesign?
I think you'd have to go back a little ways to get an accurate read on that, right? Because the MacBook Pro got redesigned, but that was the same time it switched over to Apple's chips, so they were saving money as well along with the redesign. Same with the iMac. They released the new iMac design, but they're able to save money by using their own parts.
I see. Yeah, I see it.
So this will be our first redesign of a computer that had Apple Silicon both before and after, and we'll see what they do, I guess.
Well, should we just have a few theories on the redesign as well while we're here?
Okay.
So, well, if we look at the iMac redesign, I think we'll probably get some colors. Rumors as well of a white bezel instead of a black bezel.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know about that. I mean, certainly colors, but whether it comes with a white bezel or not, I would kind of be surprised.
I'm confused why that is a sticking point for you. I mean, their iMacs have white bezels, so it's clearly something they're willing to do. And also, most of the laptops for, most of the last 20 years had white bezels, and it wasn't until they switched to all aluminum here.
Oh, wait, did they really have white bezels?
The plastic MacBooks were all white, including their bezels. And before that, the iBooks were all white.
Of course, yeah, you're right. I had the white plastic MacBook for so many years. I think the last one of them with the white bezel.
I'm not bothered by white bezels at all. I think that could actually look good, and it would match the design language of the iMac.
You've instantly changed my mind.
Okay.
And that would also suit the kind of pale colors that the iMac has, which you'd expect to see on the Airs. Pastel, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thinner bezels as well. Rumors on and off of it having a notch or not.
Mm-hmm.
A white keyboard, probably. It's basically going to be the new iMac 24, but in a MacBook Air.
Which is pretty cool, because that's what the iBooks used to be, right? Like the clamshell iBook versus the colorful G3 iMac that the current one's reminiscent of. I'm really excited for exactly what you predicted. I hope that comes true, but I'm also going to be disappointed because that's going to be the computer I want a lot more than my boring gray laptop I have sitting in front of me.
Exactly. But the most important question of all is, what ports is it going to come with? Taking again the iMac 24 as an example, It might just be USB-C.
I think you're mostly right. I think we're going to have just USB-C, and I think they're going to put MagSafe back on it. But I don't think we're going to get SD card or HDMI on the MacBook Airs.
Yeah, that's going to remain the selling point to get the Pro computers.
Yeah, exactly.
Another one of those differentiating factors that, I think we'll probably see in the iPhones this year as well. Not an HDMI port.
SD card reader in the iPhones. Oh, actually, I alluded to this already, the M2 going into Pro iPhones. But the reason I think that's necessary is because that would come with Thunderbolt controllers that they could then put Thunderbolt on the Pro iPhones to be able to offload these massive 8K videos.
Yeah, exactly. That's why having a fast physical connection to an iPhone makes so much sense. We're going to have 8K ProRes. I don't know if the 8K will be ProRes, but ProRes and 8K maybe combined. Imagine trying to airdrop that off a phone. Imagine USB 2ing that off a phone.
Right.
Untenable.
Yeah, there's no easy way to do that.
So slow. It needs Thunderbolt USB-C connector.
Yeah. And that's definitely another pro feature that could differentiate those two.
Yeah. That would be the perfect, first step away from Lightning. Just put USB-C/Thunderbolt on the Pro iPhones and leave the plain old connector for the boring people who buy non-Pro iPhones.
Yeah. Yeah. I know we've said in the past, and I still kind of half believe it, that Apple would just go to wireless before they would switch to a different port on the iPhones. But the larger and larger amounts of data that the iPhone is capable of both storing and creating, there's just going to be no way to get that off. They're going to have to keep a physical connection or reinvent some kind of wireless peer-to-peer protocol to massively transmit data.
And I do like that the non-Pro and the Pro iPhones are becoming more and more distinct. It just makes more sense. I mean, some years there was barely anything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Especially now with the rumors of the iPhone 14, the mini's going away. So.
Oh, that's our next topic.
Okay. Should we jump into that? Or
Yeah,
we
we go.
On this WWDC?
Kind of already have. No, I've finished talking
Okay.
about the MacBook Air. Yeah. You got anything else?
No, I don't think so.
Cool. Please continue.
Okay. With the mini more or less confirmed be going away, I think even since the iPhone 12, people were saying by the iPhone 14, the mini would be gone. So I think that's basically confirmed. With mini going away, people who absolutely want the smaller iPhone, didn't have to feel so bad about getting a 13 mini and it not being Pro because there wasn't that much of a difference. But now that you're going to be able to get a Pro or non-Pro version of every size of iPhone, they can really differentiate those without alienating anyone.
In one of the Reddit threads a few weeks ago, someone who claimed to be in the Verizon sales department gave a breakdown of what Verizon sold for iPhones.
Mm-hmm.
And just to give figures, basically rounded off, it was 40% iPhone, non-Pro, normal size, 30% Pro Max, 20% Pro, normal size, and then I guess that leaves 10% for the mini. That was roughly the sales figures. So you can see in an instant why Apple's decided to kill the mini and simply make a Max non-Pro, if that is indeed going to be the case.
I mean, yes and no. I see why if there was a phone in their lineup that they were going to get rid of, it would be the mini. But 10% of iPhone sales is still millions of phones.
Yeah, sure.
I don't think they were hurting to get rid of it. They weren't losing money by selling the mini. They could keep it around if they really wanted to. But yeah, I get it. I think that breakdown makes sense for the most part for me, especially with the way the current iPhone lineup is. I would recommend iPhone 13 standard to anyone who came to me asking what phone to get. But I am surprised to hear that the max sized one of the Pro phone sold more than the standard size Pro, because I imagine there's going to be a lot of people wanting just the Pro name as well.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought. I would have pegged it at normal non-Pro and then normal Pro. But maybe there are just a lot of people who just want the best iPhone you can get, and that's the Pro Max. And you have to qualify screen size is something that makes it the best.
Right.
It could also just be... Actually, I was going to say other markets where screen size is bigger, but this was specifically a Verizon statistic, so that does exclude non-US, doesn't it?
Right.
Yeah, interesting numbers. But yeah, a lot of people just want the best phone, and that's the Pro Max.
I wonder what the difference looks like between, because this is specifically people who walked in the store and bought iPhones, right? This is where that sales rep was getting their numbers from.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the people who buy their phones online, like at launch day through Apple or through the carriers, people who just are generally more well-versed with phones would lean more towards the smaller sized iPhone. But Because when I picture people actually walking into the Verizon store to buy a phone, I'm picturing an older generation. And maybe the bigger screen is useful to them for vision issues. Or when you're just holding a phone for a couple minutes as a demo phone in the Verizon store, that big screen to be like, oh, this is great. And you don't even realize how uncomfortable that will be after using it for a year or more. And so that less tech literate crowd might reach for the bigger phone just because it seems nicer on a quick glance. But I wonder what those numbers look like for like online orders.
Yeah, it could well be very different. If I was thinking about a telco's sales figures, they do make a ton of sales online as well. And the way I read this, Verizon sales managers, I'm not sure if it's a manager or what, his comment was, he was like in a Verizon office. He wasn't on the floor collecting stats.
Oh, okay. So it's for the company as a whole.
That's how I read it, but it was just a post on Reddit, a comment on a post on Reddit, so it could be 100% fiction.
It's a silly thing to make up, but there are silly people on the internet.
Really? Amazing. Just one or two, and they're both on Reddit.
And they're both on this podcast right now.
What have you made up in this podcast so far?
I don't know. Everything I've said, my opinions are all fabricated.
Well, I guess that's what opinions are, aren't they?
I'm not even a fan of Apple. I've been faking it for the last 5 years.
You're just running an iOS like emulator on your Windows PC so that you can send me iMessages and use iCloud. I don't know.
I'm a fraud. Yep.
That's it. Yeah, one downside to making a non-Pro Max phone is that all these people who feel that they are forced to, or really want a bigger phone are spending a ton of cash on it. So Apple's going to take a sales hit if they have a cheaper Max-sized phone. So that's one
true.
Point against it.
And if that's the only reason people were getting the Pro Max is because they just needed the biggest screen possible, I see why Apple needs to further differentiate the Pro and standard iPhones at that point to really sell the Pro Max, because it's not just bigger anymore.
Yeah, but I wonder if those people even care.
They may not, yeah. But they might be then pulling in a whole new crowd of people who don't need necessarily the biggest and best iPhone, but they get like the newest whatever phone. And if they're going to, I don't know how many people are going to want to buy a new iPhone with last year's processor, right? At least in the terms of the tech enthusiast crowd. Like there's plenty of enthusiasts that would buy the iPhone mini or base iPhone. But how many tech enthusiasts bought the iPhone 5C when it came out and had last year's processor in it?
There will be a ton of other things, though, that differentiate, or that improve upon, should I say, last year's non-Pro iPhone.
Sure, yeah. I actually don't know what all we're expecting. Potentially ProMotion making its way down to all the iPhones, I would hope, this year.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
It seems like that. I guess they could try to differentiate it and hold it as a different feature for another year, but it seems like one of those things that would trickle down. It's not been made clear in any of the articles, but I expect that these base model iPhones will be getting the A15 from the iPhone Pros, so with that extra GPU core. So there will be the very slightest of performance bumps year over year between the base iPhones.
Depending on the yields, I suppose.
Right. I saw a comment expressing that this could be a one-off thing for 1 year because the A16 chips are apparently switching to low-power DDR5 RAM versus the DDR4X the A15 uses. And something to do with the cost of RAM. They could be wanting to only put this new chip with the more expensive RAM in the Pro phones for a year until the price comes down, and then they'll get the phones back in sync with each other. But I could see this being a long-term plan for them where the base model iPhone's always going to be a year behind.
Don't discount the chip shortage as well. Maybe they just cannot get enough of them, of the things they need to, and you get those LPDDR5 modules to
Right.
make a ton of M2 or M3 A16s.
That's true. This does make me optimistic for... I don't know if this year is going to end up being the year we see Apple's first AR/VR headset. There hasn't been a lot of rumors about it here in the last few months, so I'm less optimistic than I was earlier in the year. But the fact that they're going to ship a new phone with the A15 in it makes me think that if we do see it sometime this fall or next spring, it's going to be fully compatible with the A15 chip. It's not going to require just the newest phone with the newest processor to run. Mm-hmm. Because I'm going to say something unthinkable, but as I am juggling my finances and thinking about how much money I'm going to want to be spending, not just on a house, but on all the modifications I want to make to it before I even step a foot in the door and move my stuff in, I'm thinking that I may not even buy an iPhone this year. Well, and the one thing that would push me over the edge to do that was if I can't use the AR headset with it, I'm going to have to. But if I can, maybe I'll just keep this and I'll spend that money on the headset instead of the phone this year.
That could certainly be the situation.
Yeah.
A headset release this year would undoubtedly support last year's phone, I would guess.
Yeah, I just didn't know how niche they were going to make it. It could have been something, but it seems like that'll be fully the case, especially if this year's phone is going to have last year's chip as well.
Yeah.
Look at me sounding like an adult growing up and not just planning ahead of time to buy the phones every year. Me in my old age.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, we'll see what happens when we get there.
It's only April, and here we are talking about September.
Yeah. Who knows?
Anything else on this year's iPhone? I'm sure we'll talk about it at least a dozen more times before then.
Yeah, I don't have much to anticipate yet. We'll hear more about it in the coming months after WWDC.
The next bit of excitement, I suppose, is iOS 16, though, because that's going to come about, or at least for beta testers, before the iPhone. So we'll probably see that at WWDC, as every year. And 9to5Mac, or did they get this from someone else? No, they got it from Steve Troughton-Smith. Found some strings referring to new focus modes in iOS 16. Actually, it was a string added to iOS 15.5 beta, which reads, using an allowed list for this focus will cause these settings to be lost on your other devices with newer software. How do you read that? There's not going to be an allowed list in iOS 16 with regards to focus modes?
From some of the critiques I've heard of the focus modes over the last year, what I would hope they would do is allow either replace the allowed list with a deny list or allow both. Because some of the frustrations that I've heard is sometimes it's harder to choose the people you want to be able to reach you versus the ones you don't. Because sometimes it's either I want to silence half my contact list, or I only want to hear from a couple people, or there's only a couple people I don't want to hear from. And having to select every contact in your list except one or two, or every app you don't want a notification from except one or two, takes a lot longer than be able to choose like this one way or the other, specific ones you're allowed to hear from or not. And so maybe they're allowing you'd be able to either choose an allow list or deny list or both.
Okay. But if there was still an allow list, I wonder how that would tie in with using it, losing settings on other devices. Anyway, it's kind of hard to predict. And on top of that, I've rarely looked at focus mode as a feature. And in fact, it seems to, when I have thought about using it, it seems to present it as the opposite of how I want to configure it, which, lines up with how you were describing it.
Right. Yeah, the extent of my usage is still turning on Do Not Disturb during the podcast, and that's it.
What about an automatic Do Not Disturb during the night?
No. I definitely want to be reachable in the middle of the night, even if I'm asleep. That's one of the realities of co-parenting from separate households is I definitely want to be able to be notified if something happens in the middle of the night.
You can add exclusions, though, if you wanted to.
I suppose I could. But I also don't get bothered in the middle of the night, ever. Like, my phone doesn't wake me up if a notification goes off or anything else. So it's just not something I've ever really concerned myself with.
Yeah, that's true for me, too, I suppose. The only bother I have is that time between closing my eyes and falling asleep. If a phone starts pinging off, then it'll wake
Right.
me up, but not once I'm asleep.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know, like I see the use case for this in situations like going to work or something, but when I work from home, I don't mind if Facebook goes off on my phone in the middle of the day. So it's not something I've played with at all.
Yep, specific use cases will be useful for, but neither of ours, at least.
That's right.
There were a few other tidbits in this article, such as, sorry, news is no longer fully supported on older devices.
Weird.
Sorry, you need to update your device in order to see this content. So
Yeah,
that's
it seems like
just getting ready for the devices where iOS 15 is the last update for them. 15.5,
Right,
I
yeah.
should say.
because we'll fully see like iPhone SE 6 and 6 Plus were expected not to be, or 6S and 6S Plus not to be getting these updates this year.
Yeah, it's truly amazing that they still were getting updates, but yeah, we're a year too far.
Right. It's about time. I wonder what will happen to the iPod Touch. If they will keep having future iOS versions support that screen size that will be only the iPod Touch from here on out, or if they'll bump the screen size of the iPod Touch or drop it. It just seems like iOS supporting that smaller screen size makes less and less sense.
But haven't I said in the past that screen size is like the zoomed in accessible screen size, so it's still kind of
it's a
important to
scaling
support
thing.
it?
Maybe it's trivial to support then in that case. Yeah.
Trivial, only 10,000 developer hours a month.
I would like to see them update the screen size of the iPod Touch. I would love to see it get like a big refresh with, put the A13 or something in it, or A14, and give it edge screen or don't. Either way, just give it a bigger screen and keep that as that entry level device for kids too young to own a phone. My daughter has the iPod Touch, but she got it for Christmas, years ago when it first came out, and it's old and slow now, but there's nothing to replace it with. That's still the best you can get. So if I wanted to give her something newer to play Apple Arcade games on or something, I'd be forced to jump to an iPad at that point.
Maybe they see the iPad mini as that new device, but then it doesn't fit in a pocket, so...
Right. Yeah, I feel like hand-me-down iPhones have become more of the entry-level device for younger kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. There are plenty of those lying around.
Yeah.
Maybe there's even some pressure from the telcos to get rid of the non-cellular devices so they can sign up more plans or add on family members to the family plan.
Right. And if they're really worried about just contacting kids, you can get your family all Apple Watches now and have the family plan for those. But as far as just a way to play games, like the iPod Touch is like the thing that sold me on the Apple ecosystem more than anything else as a middle schooler or high schooler that could, only afford an iPod at that point in time. That was the one thing that I bought every year.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard rumors about iOS 16 featuring some kind of major redesign to notifications, but that's been like the extent of what I've heard about it. Is it's going to be majorly redesigned, which that seems to be like every single year people are complaining about iOS's notifications, especially compared to Android. And maybe it's just coming from me who hasn't used Android since, I don't know, what, KitKat days? 2013, 2014-ish was the last time I had an Android device. I don't understand what the problem with iOS notifications are. I don't have a problem with them. Clearly there's some kind of issue because people complain, though. So I'd be interested to see where they go with that.
Yeah, I'm like you. I don't know what we're missing out on. Maybe if we knew, we'd be complaining. Maybe that's where all the complaints come from. People who've jumped from Android and gone like, what is this?
Right.
Yeah, I've got no problems with them. They're fine. In fact, the only complaint was introduced in iOS 14, where it gives you that stupid prompt to leave on or turn off. Like,
right. Yeah. Trying to figure out how to manage those.
Yeah. Look, I've got it turned on because I manage my notifications. I'm not the target for that little prompt.
Right.
Maybe
exactly.
It's for the person who installs like 3 games every day and then starts getting spam about buying coins. Maybe that's what it's for.
Maybe. Yeah, because I just don't get it. The one thing I would like to see out of iOS 16 is there was rumors last year with the LTPO displays being added that there could be some always-on functionality added to iPhones. That'd be cool to see this year. It might not be an iOS 16 thing. It might be an iPhone 14 thing. But just kind of some kind of small like status notification, like you have a pending notification or its clock always on or something like that, I think could be a cool thing to see.
Yeah, that would be great. I'm sure once we get used to that feature, having a phone with the screen switched off will seem positively old-fashioned.
Right. A phone that's not useful half like the majority of the time.
Yeah, you mean I should always interact with my phone to see it? To see the screen? Madness.
That was one thing I really missed going from like Windows CE smartphones, like blackjack kind of smartphones to, I guess even some Android phones had it, but it doesn't feel like I do anymore. I really liked the status like notification LED lights where you could program them to flash different colors for different notifications that you had pending. And that, that's gone away a long time ago, but an always on display kind of fills that same niche where you can at a glance see if you have a notification waiting for you.
Yeah, I know you've told me that before. I turn off anything of that sort possible, like the notification dot on my watch screen, gone. No way I'd have a little LED on my phone if that was possible to let me know. As
it's
little
so
as
useful.
possible to grab my attention. No, I check it when I check it.
Okay. I guess that's just me being a slave to my devices then.
Must be.
One of the contexts that I enjoyed it in at the time, and it doesn't really apply to me as much or almost at all anymore, when I was playing in bands a lot, like jazz band or concert bands or whatever in school, I would set my phone on my music stand and I could then see if I had a notification coming in, not by my whole phone lighting up and distracting me, but just by like the color of the LED lighting up on my phone. I could see like, oh, I got a Facebook message or I got a text message, and I could at a glance see there was something to interact with, but it wasn't like my whole phone screen lighting up and distracting me from my instrument.
And how is your Apple Watch not filling that purpose now?
It completely is. It's maybe from a bygone era. But I do still sit at my desk with my phone now on a MagSafe stand pointing at me all day while I work. So having glanceable information on that screen is it's better than the completely unused real estate that it is now the majority of the time.
Next thing, you're going to want the, what do you call it, where you move your cursor to the edge of the screen and then you can move it onto the iPhone?
I use that quite a bit, actually. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting here with my Mac and my iPad right next to each other, and there we go. Now my cursor's on my iPad.
Amazing.
That's so cool.
What do you call it again?
Not
Synergy.
Synergy is the name of an old KVM, like a virtual KVM that did that. Is it some kind of continuity or handoff? Continuity handoff?
Control.
Universal control. You're right.
There we go.
Yeah, that's actually really useful. Switching between that and sidecar features, it brings new life to the Mac. And having a portable secondary display like that is great.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I learned almost a magic trick I can do with like a couple of my iPads laid out at once. That's a combination of a handful of newish features that Apple's released in the last handful of years. So you're aware of the new like copy and paste gestures they added a few years ago?
The ones I never use, yeah. 3 fingers.
Yeah, like the 3 fingers, like almost like a pick up, set down kind of thing. It's what's supposed to simulate, right? You combine that with Universal Clipboard that has also been around for a handful of years at this point. And I did almost a magic trick where I set my iPads down next to each other. I had an empty note on one and like my photo library on the other. And I did the pickup gesture on one of the photos on one iPad, and I moved my hand over to the second one, and then I did the paste gesture like I was dropping the photo onto the other iPad, and it just appeared in the note, and it was really magical.
Were you showing someone at the time, or just
I was demoing it to my mom? But it really does. It literally looks like you picked up the photo and dropped it on from one device to the other. And that is what I imagine they had to have been envisioning when they released those new gestures.
Yeah. Although they only demoed it with text, did they not? It's totally an iPad gesture. You can do it on a phone, but it's just so cramped.
Yeah. One of those few magical moments of using a device fully in the Apple ecosystem when everything just works together like that.
Well, I would argue that the entire experience is magical, but we're just so used to it. We're so accustomed to all the features now.
We're jaded. Yeah.
Apparently iPadOS 16 will have a new multitasking interface yet again, so I just continuing to plug away until they get something right, I suppose.
They are so close to something right. Like they're getting better. The multitasking button they added to the top where it wasn't completely hidden behind gestures for the first time ever here in the last version has been very nice. The fact that they don't give you a limited tray of apps to choose from for your multitasking now, but actually show you your whole home screen to pick the app also was very much needed. There's still just a few things like the tray where you have multiple versions of the same app running. Sometimes it's hard to get the right one up or close multiple instances of an existing app. So it still needs some fine tuning, but I think we are getting really close to the right solution here.
I do wonder if it's going to be another dispose and reinvent, or if it's going to be a refinement, though.
Right.
I suppose there has been a lot of refinement, but fairly major since, was it iOS 9 that we got the first multitasking?
That sounds about right, around that time. There has been rumors here for the last month or so about running iOS apps completely windowed, which I can't actually see on the iPad, but I would love to see that as part of some kind of real external monitor support that they're finally building into iPadOS, where you can plug it into a monitor and maybe you get or even AirPlay to a monitor at this point, and you get some kind of like quasi desktop experience where you still have all your iOS apps, but you can run them windowed on this big screen. That'd be really cool to see.
Yeah, that would be great.
So if they did that, if they did add that windowed app support for external monitors, and they let you put more on your home screen, because you got your widgets and your apps now, but if you could actually drop like files on your home screen as well to make it feel more like a desktop, so you can quickly get to a folder of documents or something without having to go into the Files app and navigate through it. That would really start to bridge the gap between iPadOS and macOS.
Yeah, that's it. Then we just need some more pro apps on iOS. Away you go.
Right.
Yeah, looking forward to iOS 16, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely more iPadOS 16 than iOS 16 for me, but yeah, I'm excited to see where they go.
I still just call them both iOS 16 because it's just marketing speak that they're not both called the same thing.
Yeah, right. But I mean, iOS is now like monitor firmware, right? The Studio Display runs iOS.
Exactly. I'm James VDM on Reddit and Twitter.
And I'm Jellywoot on Reddit and Twitter.
And you can find the show notes at reddit.com/r/bluebubblepod.
All right. I've been playing with a new feature on my Apple Watch. It's not really a new feature. It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
But the single-handed watch usage they announced, I don't know, like a year ago. Is that something you've ever messed with? Does the Series 3 support that?
I don't think the Series 3 supports it.
It is so fun and more convenient than I thought it would be. And so precise. I'm so blown away by it. They can tell the difference between you clenching your fist or just like tapping your fingers together. And for quick things like glancing at information on my watch face, it's actually like really convenient to be able to use one hand to navigate my watch. Like if I'm driving or something, I can keep one hand on the wheel and also like open up my weather complication or whatever on my watch to see what the weather's going to be or something like that.
So how does that work then to open your weather? Have you told the watch like clench is weather?
No, you can navigate the whole watch. So a single clench is like a tap or a select. Mm-hmm. A tapping your fingers together jumps you to like the next interactable element on your watch screen. And tapping two fingers takes you back. And then you can do a double clench, which brings up like a advanced control menu where you can do things like choose to spin the digital crown or choose to invoke a system level action like opening the notification shade or something like that. And you can also open up like an advanced pointer that you can then tilt your wrist around and really choose a specific element on the screen.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But no, the most common use case for me is my weather widget is the first widget on my watch face. So I just pull my arm up, I double clench my fist to activate accessibility, and then I clench my fist once because the first thing selected is weather. And so it jumps me right from the current temperature into, the forecast the rest of the day. And I can quickly see that.
Yeah, cool. Okay. So you have to double clench to activate accessibility. So you're not going to just like be walking around the house and then suddenly your watch is doing stuff.
Right. Yeah, it's very specific. It doesn't accidentally trigger for me at all.
That's great.
Yeah. And it's something you can do because you can do it completely without looking at the watch too. So if I'm driving, I can just keep a hand on the wheel, eyes on the road, clench my fist twice, and then once more, and then I glance at my watch and I can see the hourly forecast for the day without having to touch anything.
Yeah, nice. That sounds very cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm surprisingly accurate. So I'm disappointed the Series 3 doesn't support it. But when you do upgrade your Apple Watch, you'll have to play with it.
What is the feature called so I can just check it up? Check if it does it.
It was just under accessibility and settings. Let me look up the exact name. Let's see. Assistive Touch under accessibility.
Let's see. Using Assistive Touch on your watch. Apple Watch Series 4 and 5 needed.
Darn.
Series 4 and later. And SE. Oh, even the SE's got it, which is basically a Series 3. How rude.
I mean, the SE has at least a little bit better of a system on a chip than the Series 3.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know what it's actually using. My guess is it has to be the gyroscope sensing small motions or something. Because I can't imagine like the heart rate monitor is able to tell like changes in resistance of your skin as it's clenching or something.
No way, no.
So it's very cool.
Yeah, cool.
So what's going on with your file system?
Yeah, well, possibly nothing, but I just wanted to raise this as a possible warning for people to make sure their time machine is up to date.
Okay.
So people are trying to get Linux running on the M1. I think the project's called Asahi Linux.
Mm-hmm.
And someone who's, I don't know how involved he is, or leading, I don't know, called Hector Martin, tweeted this. So far, Asahi Linux users have managed to find bugs in all of DiskUtil, which is obvious because DiskUtil is crap. Actually, that was DiskUtil. DiskUtility, Bless, I don't know what that is, as well as uncovered the existence of relatively widespread APFS corruption. So that was the tweet. And this isn't Linux running on APFS because it doesn't. This is just APFS, and so Mac running on APFS.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't even know how they know this because they can't have the code just because they've like reverse engineered Linux to run something. But however they've determined it, they've found out that there's a lot of widespread APFS corruption. And anyway, part 2 of this is I was doing something with my photo library, a Lightroom photo library during the week. It's something that caused Lightroom to have to resync everything to the cloud, which means it has to just go and like touch every photo and generate a low-res PDF, a low-res JPEG, and then upload it. And of the roughly 20k images in there, about a dozen of them didn't sync to the cloud. So I thought that was a bit weird. So I went and like inspected what was wrong, like because Lightroom's a catalog. Typically it'd be like, oh, the photo's not there. Like you might have deleted it off the file system and forgot to remove it from the catalog, or maybe the raw file was corrupted or something originally, or maybe it thought it was a JPEG that was supposed to be raw. But these files that didn't sync to the cloud simply existed on the disk as 0-byte files, which is very weird and not something I've ever seen Lightroom do before. I've never... Well, I didn't really lose anything of importance, thankfully. It was only a dozen from 20k images. But just reading that and then quickly after experiencing something that almost definitely is a corruption of my data got me a little bit worried. And I just wanted to flag it, tell people to make sure that they have Time Machine. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to say, is that I do have Backblaze running on my computer, but it was no good in this instance because it's only got 30-day retention, and who knows, like these files corrupted longer than 30 days ago. So in this instance, even something like Backblaze is pretty well useless, and you do need a backup system with retention, like 30 days and 6 months and a year, something like that, to make sure your data's safe.
Okay. Well, I need to get something set up for my computer.
I mean, you should anyway, but it doesn't hurt to have more.
Right. Yeah, I just trust, this is silly for the most part, but like iCloud Drive to keep track of my documents. But if my computer corrupts them, then iCloud Drive is only going to be storing the corrupted files. So that's not helpful either.
That's right, yeah.
So, yeah, I need to get around to setting up Time Machine. That'll be one of the things. That's one of the joys of putting together a new house, is I'm actually going to have like a proper networking kind of closet now, where all of my stuff can be managed, and I'll be able to put like a proper either a NAS or some kind of backup storage solution in there, and actually have something saving my data.
Are you going to have Ethernet running to that from your like desk?
Yes, yeah, I'm gonna wire it through my whole house.
Yeah, nice. That'll be great.
Yeah, so one of the many projects to look forward to. That's actually probably the most exciting project that I'm looking forward to is wiring my house and getting the networking stuff set up.
Yeah, cool. I can imagine. I'd be in the same boat.
So, and I get the basement of this house is luckily unfinished, so I don't think I'm gonna have to do any climbing around in the attic and dropping cables down walls. I can push everything up from underneath and have plenty of space to work while I'm running Ethernet everywhere.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
And just make sure you don't electrocute yourself as you're doing it.
I think I'm safe with the Ethernet.
Yeah, but if you're in the walls, it's not just Ethernet running through the walls.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Avoid the high voltage lines.
Yeah, please.
So
maybe even hire a professional to do it.
You think I'm just made of money? That is my Apple VR headset fund. I can't tap into that.